Welcome back, everybody, to the Feed Me Sports Podcast. It is another week. We have more sports knowledge for you of the scripted and non-scripted variety. My name is Alec Roman. I'll be your host today. Joining me is my co-hosts. Alexander Birch is here, of course. He never misses a week. And then finally, back from hiatus, back from the kidnapping, the medical procedure where he cried over Noah Syndergaard's arm, Louis Schaefer is back in the building, everybody. And he's now here to make racially insensitive comments.
Happy to say I've been reinstated by the NFL.
Unlike some people who are still waiting for their weed charges to be dropped.
Man, if they found out about me.
What would they find? Alcoholism?
Yeah, at least.
Alcoholism
in college for 4 years, man.
Alcoholism and just a love of McDonald's.
That's just a deep, passionate love of McDonald's.
PBR and nugs.
Lewis's two best men before we get up.
A can of PBR and a 20-piece. Meanwhile, we're still sitting in the audience like, all right, we got skipped over for nugs and PBR.
7 years of friendship and a tailgate box gets a tuxedo.
You two had to hold the PBR and nugs.
I call it tailgate box. I'm done with it. I'm not holding the PBR because I'll drink it.
Well, I have no problem with holding it and drinking it. That's fine with me.
So before we start tonight, I want to say a quick congratulations to Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella. For those of you who don't know, WWE superstars Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella have had their first daughter. They are now proud parents. I want to wish them the best in parenthood and all the things that come with it. And I hope for, all good things across the board. I hope their baby is safe and sound and healthy and grows up to be a better wrestler than Brie, which is a low bar, but aim for the stars there, kid. And I also want to give a quick congratulations to Derek Jeter, whose number is going to be retired this weekend. Regardless of your opinions of him throughout his career, I believe he's one of the best, nose to the ground grinders in baseball that ever I got to watch play. Just an incredible athlete and an incredible workhorse, and I wish him the best with him having a daughter soon and in his new marriage and everything else he goes into, being a new owner as well. So we'll start off right away. NBA playoff update. We haven't talked about this in a little while because we've been missing our NBA stuff. So I just want to give a quick update. Golden State sweeps Utah. I cry a little bit on the inside. Houston is down 3-2 against the Spurs, so it looks like it's probably going to be Spurs Warriors.
Well, yeah, Kawhi's out tonight, actually.
It's still the Spurs. It's pop. I got faith.
Yeah, but I mean, you miss Kawhi's defense on James Harden, at least for a game.
Yeah, just shoot him. And then there's Cleveland.
All right,
Toronto.
then.
Cleveland has not lost a game yet, and neither is Golden State. Golden State and Cleveland are both have not lost. They have swept both series. Boston is up on Washington 3-2. I want to ask you guys, is there any surprises so far, Birch? I know you've been critical of Cleveland, but what are you looking at here? 8 wins.
Yeah, they turned it on to another gear, which is, you kind of expect that with the Cavs. No surprises for me. I mean, it's kind of been pretty straightforward. The Celtics giving it their all with Washington. I like the Raptors, but they didn't have enough to match with the Cavs. And Golden State, of course. Does anybody in the West besides maybe San Antonio or Houston have enough to challenge them to 6 or 7? So I think it's been kind of what I at least expected so far. And with that being said, what I expect is Cleveland, Golden State again. So
round 3. Lewis, what about you? What are you looking at in basketball?
Yeah, I think we're going to get 2 sweeps all the way to the finals. I just think that Golden State is superior to everybody, and LeBron has turned it on in the playoffs like everybody thought he would. So I can't help but think, I mean, if it's Boston, maybe they can get a game or 2. Kawhi's banged up. Houston, if the shots don't fall, we've seen it in the series with the Spurs, they get blown out by 20. Golden State is so deep just in their starting 5, someone's bound to be on. And Cleveland has multiple ways to score. I think it's going to be a long layover between the conference finals and the finals before the inevitable rematch of the Warriors and Cavs.
Hey, rematch.
The
Third
rubber
time.
match.
Three match.
It's the rubber match, as they would say.
I wanted to ask you guys: Is it boring to you? Like, will it be boring to you to watch that for a third time?
Yes. Basketball is boring to me.
See, you say that, but then you mollywop everybody in 2K, and we all know that you secretly like it.
I like watching close games. I don't like watching them play.
It's okay. I think I finally put together a squad that may be able to beat Alec in 2K.
I've heard that before.
Who do I get to play with? If who do you have on your squad? That's the question.
So I got hear me out here. I got Drew Holiday.
Okay. You have my respect on that one.
Drew Holiday, Klay Thompson, KD, Serge, Rudy. Then on the bench, I got Tony Allen. Had Paul Pierce. He just retired. Who else do I got on the bench? Buddy Hield. TJ McConnell.
Good choice.
Let me think. Willie got Willie on the bench. Trying to think. What's Nene? Nene's out there. So I got a pretty deep team. NKD at the top of it.
Well, let me be the first to say I am anticipating this matchup between you two.
I mean, it depends on who I get. But, honestly, I'll take the old Utah squad minus Willie. It'll be a rough game, but we'll pull it out. So
I'll have to make that roster and get back to you on it.
Moving on to NHL playoffs, we are now into the conference finals. All the teams have been set. It is going to be Nashville against Anaheim and Ottawa against the Penguins. What are you guys thinking? Is it Nashville or Anaheim, Lewis? Who do you got?
I got Nashville. I think they've put together a nice team there. They've clearly done what Montreal just wasn't able to do, and build a team around everything that Subban can give you. And I love watching them play. Anaheim had trouble with an upstart Edmonton team, as good as they were. They really hadn't, tested the playoff waters before. So yeah, I'm going Nashville.
Birch, what about you? Smashville or Ducks?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm going Nashville. I think the Ducks they're an exciting team. They have a lot of good players. They're big and physical, but I think Edmonton exposed them a little bit, especially some of their goaltending issues. I think Nashville can exploit that. I'm going to go 6 games. I'm going to go Nashville in 6.
All right, we'll go over to the East. Ottawa against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh coming off beating the Capitals in 7 games. Ottawa beating the Rangers in 6 in a close series, even though they didn't get to 7. I'm thinking I'm going to have to say the Penguins. I watched that game last night. They came in stale after the past 2 games. They had lost to Washington. Washington looked hot. They made, minuscule line changes. I think they changed 2 guys around.
Yeah, well, they brought back that HBK line.
But the
Hagelin, Bonino, and Kessel line.
Right, but that line wasn't the line that got it done. Putting Rust on the first line made them the best team in hockey. That's insane.
Yeah.
And Rust isn't your elite player. I just think the Penguins have such an ability to switch up their style of play by their line setup and not have to rely on anybody. And you look at Sidney Crosby in that game, wasn't a big factor. The big factors in that game were Rust, Hagelin, and Kessel. And they came out there, played insane, and made the Capitals look real silly. So I think they win it probably in 6. I'm going to give them 6 games. I'm going to give Ottawa 2 wins, but I don't think they can get more than that. So what do you think, Birch?
Yeah, I could see that. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Ottawa steals game 1. But yeah, I do. As much as I don't like him, I have to tip my hat. When he's arguably the best player in the game, Sidney Crosby, and when he doesn't factor in much and you can still take down a team as deep as Washington, that says a lot about the core you have. So I've been really impressed with Ottawa this season. especially now that Bobby Ryan's putting it all together. And he's had just a fantastic regular season and postseason. But I think the hot hand prevails, and I'm gonna go Pittsburgh in 6 as well.
What are you thinking, Lewis? Who walks out of Pittsburgh, Ottawa?
I got Pittsburgh too. Ottawa, I know, contradictory because they beat my Rangers in 6 games, but they're not good. They come out flat more often than not, and the scoring ability that Pittsburgh has with, all their, Kessel, Malkin, Crosby, Hagel, they could score on any line. And for me, what it comes down to is that what killed the Rangers was that Ottawa is very good once they get a man advantage. Their power play is good. Their 6-on-5 is good when they pull Anderson. I think Pittsburgh's going to be up in such a way in games where it's a minute and a half left, they're going to be up by 2. And pulling Anderson, even if they score right away, they're still down 1. So I think Pittsburgh's able to just put up goals much easier than the Rangers are in a way that will bury Ottawa. I would say 5.
All right. Some lofty goals for the Penguins right there. So we'll want to move on from – before we move on, I want to bring this up because I thought about this last night. I was watching that Washington-Pittsburgh game. I was going to ask you guys this. Is it time to blow it up in Washington? And
yes.
Before you can answer, before you get all uppity here, there has been no team besides the Vancouver Canucks that has won the President's Trophy back-to-back and not won the Stanley Cup at least one of those times. And if you look at the state that the Canucks are in right now, where they are just looking for any hope because they have nothing. The Sedins are old, Miller is old, and they spent too long trying to be in a win-now mode when they really shouldn't have been, and they passed up on so many good prospects. Is it time for Washington to kind of cut ties with everybody else and let Oshie walk and let Backstrom go and try to build up a new core around an aging Alex Ovechkin just for, keep him around for, I guess, nostalgia's sake?
This might be extreme, but I would argue that the Caps should trade Alexander Ovechkin and get draft picks and get younger. I think they got to do something. What is this, the 3rd or 4th straight year that they've had one of the best records and they've been a cup favorite and they just disappoint? They have such – on paper, you look at Ovechkin, you look at Shattenkirk, Holtby, Oshie, Backstrom. The list goes on and on of talent that they have, and they just can't get it done. One of the shows I think we did, I said that I would be shocked if they didn't make it to the Cup. They were one of my Cup picks, but like I said, this is the 3rd or 4th straight year that they've come in as a favorite, and they can't at least get there. I think they got to do something to shake up that core and really get younger players, just get draft picks. Something's got to change there. Enough is enough with this, trying to add another piece while giving up younger pieces. It clearly hasn't worked, so I don't know why you're trying to build the same way that hasn't worked over the last couple of years.
What about you, Lewis? Is it time to blow up Washington and start over?
I don't think so. I feel like this offseason is going to be very interesting in terms of players, teams dealing the rights to players that are going to be free agents for other players that, teams may not want to have to spend a protection on for Vegas. I think that's going to throw a hitch in the offseason that could be very interesting. Honestly, Holtby is ass in the playoffs. He has taken the throne from Fleury. And I think if they can get themselves a goalie, Holtby's good in the regular season, but, regular season's not going to win you the cup that you want. You've won in the regular season before. You have President's trophies to show for it. They need someone that can win for them in the playoffs. And, originally I had said Ben Bishop. if they could maybe swap Shattenkirk's rights for Bishop's rights. But, I mean, he obviously got his rights sent to Dallas, I think. But if they could find something along those lines to get them a legitimate goalie, even if they have to deal Holtby to get him, they need a better goalie, because Holtby is fine in the regular season. It's the postseason when you're trying to win. I think they're a goalie away from beating Pittsburgh. And then, I mean, if they could beat Pittsburgh, they could beat anybody in the East. So,
yeah, I mean, the other thing to consider too, and I know you were out, but Alec and I were talking about the Flyers and the Devils having this draft to kind of start building back up. That's two more teams that the Caps have to worry about. So you do bring up a good point about them at least changing something. And obviously if they can beat Pittsburgh, but you have to think now teams in the East are only going to start getting better. I mean, you have Toronto, you'll still have Boston, the Flyers and Devils are getting back, with the draft and clearing up some money. So I only suggest that they blow it up because, I mean, it hasn't worked for 3 or 4 years. So why continue to add more older players when you could turn like the Flyers and Devils and try to get younger? And, maybe you have that luck where you're like Toronto and Edmonton and you get these younger players who come in and produce right away.
Oh, yeah.
But I do definitely agree that, Braden Holtby's a fantastic regular season goalie, but he's Tony Romo in the playoffs. I mean, he just does not show up.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to rebuild, you're going to rebuild at some point anyway, and it's going to take a couple of years. The best thing for them would be just to try to start hitting on draft picks. I mean, Hershey had a decent run this year. There may be some players there that could provide them with something, be it off the bench or on the fourth, third line, or potentially contribute in a bigger role. So I think they could get younger, but I don't think it's necessary to blow it sky high. Because I think, like I said, if they can get a goalie, I mean, you have the goal scoring, Vetkin and Oshie and, the defense and Niskanen. And I mean, it looks like they're going to lose Shattenkirk. But if you could just get a goalie that could perform in the postseason, you're on to something. And you can do kind of what the Rangers have done in a sense of the Rangers didn't deal a lot of their big players. They dealt Brassard, they dealt Hagelin, they dealt Cam Talbot, but Rick Nash is still there, McDonough's still there, Girardi's still there, as decent as he was this year. He was better than last year. Henrik's still there. The Rangers still have the pieces in place, but they had guys like Vesey, Shea, Lindbergh come up and produce. And I think if Washington can get that, then they're fine. But like I said, they're a goalie away that can play in the postseason from being a legitimate threat every year to get like the same way we look at Pittsburgh. It won't be, can they get past Pittsburgh? It's, they're going to compete with Pittsburgh, and can they get all the way this year?
Well, here's my thing with Washington. They have too many contracts coming up at once to pull off a Rangers-esque type move. The Rangers had set themselves up in such a place where they had extended contracts going already, and they just dealt guys that were going to have to get re-signed as it is. But if you look at Washington's team and how they've set it up, 3 years ago they assumed they were already going to win the cup at this point.
Yeah.
You have Oshie, who's up on his contract, Shattenkirk, who's up on his contract, who I'm sure they would love to bring back, but like you said, probably not. Backstrom has a year left after this one. You're going to look at, Holtby just signed a huge extension for a lot of money, and if you're going to tell me he's not going to produce in the playoffs, why'd I give him $7 million a year? There's just not, the best thing that, like you said, with the Rangers was they had an established elite defenseman and an established elite goalie. Now you're saying for Washington, they don't have a goalie that's an elite goalie because he's only a regular season goalie. He's not a playoff goalie. He's the Marc-Andre Fleury of the Capitals, and they don't have a Matt Murray. And they have no elite defenseman because Shattenkirk's going to walk either to the Rangers or they go 1-for-1 with him to the Stars or wherever he goes.
No, he'll get paid on the market one way or another. Somebody's going to pay him big money.
Right. So he's going to be the elite defender somewhere else. I think Washington has to. I don't know exactly what Washington has to do. I mean, I think they have to low key rebuild. I think they have to trade away some of those aging players that are going to get them into trouble later on. And then, kind of go year by year to see how they pan out. But I think Washington is the ultimate sign of why you don't sign restricted free agents in the NHL. You look at other sports where restricted free agents are a thing and the penalties aren't as severe as it is in the NHL. I mean, the Capitals haven't had a lot of draft picks in the past 3 to 4 years because every time there's a huge RFA who goes up and the other team slaps a qualifying offer on him, the Capitals just try to outbid them instead of thinking of, oh, we're losing a first and a third rounder to get this player. Yeah, it doesn't matter. We'll win anyway. And you can't have that mentality. I mean, they lost 3 picks trying to get TJ Oshie, and he has not been the TJ Oshie that they paid for. They paid for that Olympic hero TJ Oshie, who was a one-game kind of guy. He was an unsung hero guy. He is a great player, but he's not the franchise player that you paid so much for. You look with what St. Louis has done. They lost TJ Oshie, they lost Shattenkirk, and they're still just fine because they gave so many picks and at the Capitals' expense. It's just a cautionary tale, and it's a tale to everyone else in the East of how not to try to win against the Penguins.
Yeah, and see, that's why I argue that maybe they need to take one of those veterans, a Backstrom, hell, even Ovechkin, because my God, you could get a king's ransom for him. But you need to kind of replace those draft picks and get some of these younger guys, because they do have some older guys, like you said, that are kind of strapping them down with the cap. And the restricted free agent, yeah, you bring up a good point. They're giving up so many draft picks and they're not replacing them. So I mean, and obviously, like we've all said, it hasn't worked. So they need to change something. They need to do something that kind of uplifts this franchise. And maybe it is trading Holtby or letting Shattenkirk and Oshie go and getting draft picks back. But I think they have to look in the mirror and they have to really evaluate where they want to be in the next couple of years. I mean, do they want to be that team that gets in the playoffs and just gets bounced? Or do they want to be a team that gets some young blood in there to push the older guys, some of the older guys that they have, and maybe they can compete with the Pittsburghs, the New Yorks, the Torontos,
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do going into this offseason. Like Lewis said, this is a weird offseason for the entire NHL. So it'd be interesting to see what their strategy is going into it. And I think it all depends on what that expansion draft shakes out to be. Whoever Vegas takes is going to drastically affect whatever franchise loses those players. Because if you look at a team like Washington, Vegas could come in and take away the entire bottom part of their roster. And then I say, well, yeah, go get more players. Go spend in free agency on some free agents to make your team better again. But if they don't take anybody, I think it's time to trade things away for some draft picks, and not your Ovechkins or Backstroms, because you still need to sell tickets.
True. Yeah, true.
But Jay Beagle can go. All those guys can leave, and you can do just fine. And you're not going to make those deep playoff runs. You're not going to be a President's Trophy team, but you're going to be a team that's going to win some games and give time for some of those guys in Hershey to develop. And really become a stable part of the franchise for years to come. So we'll move on to the NFL. Today in the NFL, Josh Gordon has been denied reinstatement by the NFL, and it's not for any drug reasons, actually, unlike has been his past suspensions. It's because he walked out on his contract to go to rehab for his drug issues. So my question to you, Lewis, is it more important in the NFL's eyes for him to not do drugs and struggle with it than to go seek help for the drug problem he's been in trouble for 3 times?
Yeah, I can't wrap my head around this. Like for me, it's one thing if he was reinstated a year ago, a couple months ago, whatever. And then was with the team, was, working out, doing everything, whatever. And then ultimately just, in the middle of training camp, was like, screw it, I can't, I need help. and just vanished. He wasn't reinstated by the league because of a potential failed drug test. Again, never ultimately came out. So, who knows if there's some cover-up work there or whatever. But he was never reinstated. He was never technically part of the NFL when he went to rehab. So I get disciplining him for, just up and leaving and going to rehab. But if you're going to tell him he doesn't have a job because of his problem, and then not reinstate him after he's been clean but may have failed the drug test, we're not really sure. And then on top of that, you look at, he's kind of done everything right. He got himself, a job at a car dealership during the season so he could, still make money, and, stayed clean and went to rehab and, kept his nose clean. We didn't really hear about him like we would with Manziel. And then for the NFL to kind of come out and say, yeah, no, you're still not coming back. Like, for me, him walking out while under contract, even though he hadn't been reinstated, that's a team issue for me. Reinstate him, let him come into camp. If Hugh Jackson decides, listen, we found out from the NFL, because obviously we don't know everything, but, let's say the situation was he was going to come back. He was going to, come back at the start of training camp. They're going to reinstate him, let's just say. Like I said, for me, that's a team issue. If Hugh Jackson goes to him and says, listen, we know that you were about to be reinstated. You up and went to rehab when you could have been playing here. And we could have organized help for you around fulfilling your obligation to the Browns. That's one thing. He was never reinstated. Like I said, for me, again, it's a team issue. Let him come back. Let him come back into the facility and let Hugh Jackson, let Paul DePodesta deal with it from there. Let Sashi Brown deal with it from there. You have Corey Coleman. You have Kenny Britt. He doesn't need to be there day one. He can be phased back into the offense. I'm not worried about it from a personnel perspective because he's a damn good receiver, whether he's your 4 or your 1. For me, again, it's a team issue. He should have been reinstated, brought back into the facility, and then if Hugh Jackson or Sashi Brown wants to say, listen, you up and left when you had a commitment to the team, we're going to slap 2 games on it. Fine. But that's a team issue, and it should have been dealt with by the Browns, not the NFL.
So, but speaking off of that point, I want to read this. That is the statement from the Browns.
Okay.
Saying the NFL Players Association is behind him. The Browns front office is behind him. Browns general manager Sashi Brown said that the franchise will consider Gordon as an option despite his off-field troubles if he receives NFL clearance. So everybody is okay. Literally everyone who has to make those decisions has said, besides Hugh Jackson because he has not commented on it yet, has said, yeah, no, we're going to use him or at least consider him if he can play. His drug counselor out of his rehab facility says he's been clean. He is in the best physical condition that he's ever been in life. He is more healthy now than the day he walked into college all those years ago. And just the NFL is looking at it as, well, he walked out, so therefore we're not going to let him back. And that just upsets me.
Yeah, and again, for me, that's a team issue. If the Browns were mad about him leaving, that is their prerogative, and not the NFL's.
Yeah, this whole thing for me is just a weird situation, and it's always been weird. I mean, the NFL has this huge anti-marijuana, task force, if you will, and I get that, but I'm looking at it. The Steelers wide receiver Martavis Bryant was reinstated by the league on a condition that he needed to go out and seek help. He needed to go out and seek rehabilitation, and he wasn't allowed to joined the team at minicamp, OTAs, and training camp until, he had proven that he went to a rehabilitation center. So I don't understand why the NFL hasn't the same prerogative with Josh Gordon. I definitely agree with the both of you. It's a team issue with him walking out of the contract. But it just seems like they continue to bury the guy. And I'm almost at the point where maybe the guy is a great talent, but he hasn't played in, 3 years? We're going on 3 years. I almost feel like it's gotten to the point where maybe the Browns need to get rid of him and do him a favor where he goes to a new scenery and a new environment. Because it almost feels toxic to me, like Josh Gordon and the Browns. I mean, this long battle of the him using marijuana and just being a distraction to the team, because you have to believe it's a distraction to the team. I mean, he's a good receiver and he's had this issue for several years now. It's just so weird that they are using the contract as the reasoning for not reinstating him and not the problem that he's actually had. Like, at least for me, I see that he's making the effort to go to rehab. If these reports are true that he stayed clean, he's been working out, trying to get his mind back into football, give the guy a chance and let the Browns make the decision if it's worth it or not. I mean, I would argue that maybe they need to move on, like I said, and he needs a new environment. But, if the Browns are coming out and saying, hey, we're supporting you, we're behind you, then to use the contract to not reinstate him, I think it's terrible. I think that's awful, especially if the guy is showing effort to clean up his life and his lifestyle.
Well, I just want to say this because this is the statement that he has said, Josh Gordon has put out, and that is confirmed by his rehab facility, that he went in September of this past season. Before
because that's when he just walked out, right?
Yeah, he'd gone to rehab. He has passed every single drug test since Thanksgiving. So, and for their rehab facility, I'm assuming they have routine drug tests all the time. He's been out of rehab since Christmas, and he has not tested positive for drugs in sporadic tests since Christmas. So I think we're past the point of, is he going to be clean? Is he not going to be clean? I think we've passed that point already. It's not like we can keep holding it over this guy's head. And it's not like he went out and did crystal meth. He smoked weed. He did the thing that's now legal in like 6 or 7 states.
Yeah, but the thing that I think we have to remember, though, is, and if you watched the draft, Roger Goodell actually spoke about it. They're condemning this as much as a topic can be condemned in social society today. I mean, the NFL has this real strong anti-marijuana, and, we can debate the pros and cons of it in society, but, the problem is you hear the names Josh Gordon, Martavis Bryant, and I'm drawing a blank on some of the names just because I'm fixated on Josh Gordon, but anybody who uses weed is basically demonized by the league. If the guy has done everything possible, and you even reinstate Martavis Bryant, who's had the same crap going on.
Who didn't go to rehab, who was just like, yeah, I'm suspended, whatever.
Exactly. And, the NFL puts in his contract through the Steelers that he needs to seek help and then he can join the team. Absolutely. So
but
why would
Josh Gordon does it? You're not going to let him because he's a Brown, and that would help the Browns too much.
It's like the guy actually went out and seeked help and was trying to better himself. And, he seemed really disturbed by it, that, he had been using it all those years, whereas Martavis Bryant's like, all right, well, whatever. And he tweets on draft day what Juju Smith-Schuster gets drafted and he's going to take Sammy Coates' job. Like, but Josh Gordon just keeps his nose to the ground, works out, tries to better his life. I mean, that's why I'm saying, yeah, that's what
he got a 9 to 5.
That's why I'm saying it's such a weird situation that they would want to use the contract, which is a team-oriented activity, than him, if he slipped up, fine. Then don't reinstate him. But if he's showing you everything that he can do to better himself, give him a chance.
Yeah, I think you got to give him a shot. I mean, if he screws up again, yeah, sure. Suspend him. I don't care if he keeps screwing up. He knows the rules at this point. But to say, hey, man, I know you went to rehab. I know you're clean now. I know you got a 9 to 5. I know you're working out. I know you're trying to fix your life. By the way, you don't have your job anymore. That's just
because you walked out of a contract.
That's disgusting to me. If if the Browns had said we don't want him anymore, and then the NFL was like, yeah, we can't let you back if it's not as a Brown, and the Browns don't want you, that's fine. But the Browns do want him. The Browns are okay with him coming back, and the league says, no, you don't get this nice toy that you paid for.
And you know the thing too is it's almost kind of like when Mike Vick came back and hadn't played in like 2 years, and it's almost like the body hasn't been taking that beating for so long. So it's almost in a way like you're getting a 26-year-old rookie because he hasn't been taking the beatings for the last 3 years and he's gotten his body back in shape. So it would almost be like the Browns redrafted him.
Which I'm okay with because they originally drafted him, and he's still under contract. So
and you know, like it was said, he's a damn good wide receiver, whether you play him at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, and with him having Corey Coleman and Kenny Britt and now Njoku in the offense, I mean, you could be talking about a Browns offense that could put up a lot of points, depending who's playing quarterback. But, you know,
that'd be too good for Goodell, so now he's going to sit in the pine because Goodell needs someone else to win.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys. It's just it's a team issue if you're talking about the contract, but if you're talking about Josh Gordon himself, then I would say the NFL can step in. But I don't know. Yeah, if he's clean, give the guy a chance.
I mean, the Players Association has cleared him. I'm assuming the Players Association runs the same tests that the NFL would.
Absolutely.
So if the Players Association has said, yeah, you're good, you're back in, shouldn't the NFL say the same?
The Players Association is working hand in hand with these rehab centers and trying to get all the information from the rehab centers. So if the rehab center is saying that Josh Gordon hasn't failed a drug test in several months and that he's clean and, you know, done X, Y, and Z, and the NFL Players Association is even saying, okay, yeah, you know, this is what's being said, we'll back it up, then why is the NFL then saying, no, sorry, can't reinstate you?
Because I don't know. I honestly have no idea why you would prevent a
player
who hasn't done anything wrong.
If it was deflating a football, I mean, this guy would be.
That's an automatic 4 games. That's an automatic 4 games. You can't even. Don't even joke about deflating a football or punching somebody in the face. God forbid.
If you punch someone in the face, you can still get drafted. But if you smoke a blunt, can't even get.
You're done.
Can't even. You smoked a blunt once. You can't even get a job.
But, you know, Lewis brings up a good point. Is we were talking about it all leading up to the draft because, you know, Joe Mixon. And it's like, okay, well, I would really wonder if there was a college prospect. And it happened with Laramie Tunsil because he fell with that picture of the bong or whatever the heck that was. But I really want to know, like, if a prospect if a prospect was coming in having, you know, a known weed addiction, and I'm using that word loosely because, again, we can debate whether it is really addictive or not, but, you know, would they say that, no, you can't get drafted? You absolutely have no place, but where Joe Mixon punches a girl and breaks her face, it's, yeah, dude, go ahead, get drafted. You'll even be a second-round pick and still make guaranteed money.
Yeah, and it's just it's up to the league at this point to decide what they deem as more valuable, but we won't get into that argument because that could take us the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, because I was about to say Roger Goodell is at the draft talking about, you know, the NFL's hard stance on marijuana, but where's your hard stance on domestic violence?
Or anything, really. The only hard stance is on the softest shit they could find. So we'll move into the WWE because it is almost summertime. It is May. We are weeks away from the summer cuts, which are my favorite part of every year because suddenly certain wrestlers are never on TV ever again.
That's awful, man.
It's honest.
Then they show up in the Impact Zone.
And then they show up in the Impact Zone.
And then their characters totally recreated, and then they come back, and it's like, oh, wasn't that guy Husky Harris at one point?
Well, he wasn't fired. He was just recreated. That's different. I'm talking about guys who are going to get fired.
No, I think he was let go, and then they
sent him back down. He went back to
him they just sent down.
Okay, I thought they released him and then brought him.
No, they're going to fire some people in this one. So I was going to ask you guys, who do you think is going to be cut by WWE? Because it is hard to be cut by WWE right now because they just don't have enough people on rosters. They need to keep buying people. So, but who deserves the axe this summer and is not even going to show up for the other pay-per-views past Backlash? Lewis, who's leaving and probably going to the Impact Zone.
Let me think. Okay. Mike, I apologize. The Ascension's got to go.
Really? Yeah. See, I was gonna go SmackDown as well, but not the Ascension. I was gonna leave them because they're a good, they're a good
Lewis,
dark match thing to throw in.
Well, he stole mine, so now you need to go so I can think of one real quick.
Well, I was gonna say another fellow member of the SmackDown Live Tag Team division, former member, Aiden English has got to go.
I thought about him. But it seems like they're gonna reinvent his character as a singles competitor. I think maybe not on the main roster. Maybe he goes down to NXT to do it. But it really does seem like they're gonna kind of reinvent him without Simon Crotch.
See, but here's my thing. When you come up, and it's not like they were put into a tag team in NXT. They came in as a tag team.
Aiden English was there first.
Aiden English was there first, but when they made their big debut, that was actually where they actually had an entrance and music, not just already in the ring. But it was the Vaudevillains. They were a tag team. They were NXT Tag Team Champions. They were contenders for the WWE Tag Team Championships. They were contenders for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. I mean, they had done relative success as a team together, and Simon Gotch leaves, and I just immediately think I don't take Aiden English seriously as a singles competitor. I just don't. He is the guy who gets beat up for 5 minutes, makes a hot tag to Simon Gotch, and then does the whirly dervish, and then we leave. That's his job, and it's been his job for the past 3 years. I just don't see him as a serious singles competitor, and I think he's going to be reinventing his character in New Japan Pro Wrestling in the next coming 2 to 3 months. Birch, who do you think? Who's going to get fired?
I'm going to go to the women's division, and it's only because I had read up about this at work the other night. It appears she suffered another injury, so, in injuries, it's always hard to let people go because it's not really like they have control over it, like where they would with their wrestling style or promo ability. But I think the writing's on the wall for Emma. They didn't know what to do with her when she came in. They sent her back on to NXT. She kind of rebuilds herself as a good villain. And then they had that big hype for what seemed like centuries about her coming to Raw. She comes and now gets hurt. So it's like they don't know what to do with her. And then she gets injured, which kind of does suck. But I think the end of the line for her.
Well, technically, under WWE policy, you cannot be fired while injured and under their medical care.
Okay.
So she has to stay around. Yeah, that's why Paige still has a job. And Summer Rae still has a job. Because they technically cannot be fired while injured because that would be deemed unfair.
Then I would say, I guess, when she gets healthy enough, then they probably would.
Throws in Paige and Summer Rae as well. All three of them in there. You're all gone.
Yeah, as soon as Paige gets healthy, she's done. And especially with her.
Paige is going to follow her husband whenever she's done.
El Patron, yeah.
She'll be going to every independent show from here to wherever.
But I guess with that being said, then if she's healthy, I think this is the end for Emma because it's like you said, Alec. They're real thin on talent as it is. So if you get rid of somebody, it would send shockwaves enough. So I would be really careful about who you get rid of.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to get rid of some people. Some people are just dead weight.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I mean, even still, like when you're, kind of like diving through the dumpster to find talent at this point, and they do have some good talent in NXT, but even still, some of those guys and women are not ready to come up yet. So, your main roster on SmackDown and Raw is thin enough. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a woman. I think Eva Marie could go.
Well, I mean, she's another one.
Oh, I think she's
can't
gone.
get fired while you're
actually.
hurt.
No,
she's not hurt.
She's not even hurt?
No, she's not. Actually, Lewis brings up a good point. I think there was a mutual termination of her contract, I read.
Oh, that
I think it's I last time I heard it's done. She's looking to do. The article I read said movies, but we won't dive into what movie she may be doing. But it looks like she's going to be doing shit afterwards.
We can't watch at DeSales University.
Yeah.
That shit.
Yeah, I kind of read something similar where as soon as it's like one of those things where like Ryback and Del Rio, like when their contract was up, they weren't going to renew it. So I think it was like the same language where they just agreed she's done. Like I think her contract's up in like June or July, so she's done.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, she was never good anyway, so I don't care. She is gone, and I'm okay with it. But I want to talk about someone else who might be leaving at the end of their contract, and WWE might not be too happy about it because they don't love him, but the fans do. SmackDown Live general manager Daniel Bryan's contract is up after SummerSlam, literally like a CM Punk style 12 midnight the day of SummerSlam. He is officially a free agent if he doesn't sign an extension. And he has said multiple times that if WWE doesn't allow him to get back in the ring, he will not sign another contract because he's been cleared by New Japan and ROH to wrestle again. Their medical test has passed him.
I'm just, not to interrupt you, but I'm going to say this real quick. There's no way in hell WWE lets him go because the backlash that they would get would be so bad. And I think it would hurt viewing so bad that it would almost force them to turn around and bring him back, like, if they did let him go.
Well, here's the thing. WWE's policy on concussions is super strict. They view concussions as almost like a life or death situation, which is true in a sense, but not really in the way they word it. He has been tested in ROH in his past. He's been tested in New Japan in his past, and he was recently seen in talks with the Impact Zone about taking their test to see, how many companies he could pass just to prove to WWE that he should be in the ring again. If he does leave, which is a possibility because he said he's open to walking away, Lewis, where do you think Daniel Bryan wrestles his next match?
Yeah, just real quick, you were right on the SummerSlam thing. It's next SummerSlam. He had said 18 months. He had said 18 months on a Talking Smack recently. Like Miz was talking shit on him, and he was like, "We'll see you in 18 months." I could see him wrestling for another company just because he wants to. Obviously he carries a name with him. People know who he is. The biggest thing for me is that if he's cleared, I wasn't the biggest fan of his character, obviously. You guys know that. But
Lewis isn't like anyone that makes children happy.
Exactly. I would love to see him as a talent wrestle again somewhere. Honestly, I think it just comes back to forcing WWE's hand. If he can get, there's 3 smaller, 4, if you want to lump in Lucha, smaller brands to WWE being the cream of the crop. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
That if he can get cleared by all 4 of them, and essentially going to a bidding war of who wants to have Daniel Bryan on their show, then they're going to find a way to sign him and keep him under Vince's watch. And obviously there's an incentive that comes with it. You have to take into account, what if one day we're watching SmackDown and he just drops AJ Styles?
Yeah.
Like, even if he's still the GM and just socks him and drops him.
I cry a little bit.
The next Big 4 pay-per-view, he has a match with AJ Styles. It almost gives WWE the advantage in a way of that element of surprise of, okay, we know he's been cleared by these other 4 companies. The rumors are saying that he's not cleared, but what if he is? What if the doctors say that he is good? He drops AJ Styles.
But what it comes down to for me is, even as a general manager and him coming on to his music, he still gets such an ovation. It's deafening.
They let Hulk Hogan walk away. They don't care.
Hold on, that was for a lot of other reasons, though, and Daniel Bryan would do no such thing.
Reasons that I totally support.
Bully Ray had to marry his daughter.
Yeah, I just if they let him go when ratings are still like teeter-tottering, I mean, the backlash would be so unbelievably bad on Vince that
Vince gives a shit.
You have to believe that when it's a top talent like Daniel Bryan and somebody who does sell tickets and sells merchandise, that he would. I mean,
it's on the Blue brand. If it's on SmackDown, I don't care.
What it comes down to with Vince is the dollar sign. When that man sees money, that man will do anything.
Birch, I'll disagree with you real quick just from a PR perspective because that seems where you're trying to get at this, right? Like how?
Well, I mean, he sells tickets, he sells money, he's still a big name.
Yeah. See, one of the things I heard you mention was that like it would make WWE look bad if he goes and wrestles somewhere else. I don't think that's the case because that's very easily spun back at look at how thorough our concussion protocol is compared to these other companies that he was a top star. We would have loved to have him back, but we didn't think it was in his best interest to compete.
Right,
but all these other smaller companies that are trying to get a superstar like him are, you're clear. Please sign with us.
Right, and it's also the fact of he is getting paid right now as a non-wrestling talent. He is not getting the money that he deserves, and honestly. And you look at the contracts that were recently handed out to guys like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks in ROH and in New Japan. Daniel Bryan can demand the same exact amount of money and wrestle again. So you're going to tell me that WWE is going to force him to not wrestle and then to get paid like a non-wrestling talent. And he has the option to then walk away and say, I can make millions and wrestle somewhere else. I think he does it. I think it's the best move in his interest.
Yeah, I don't disagree with either of you from what you're saying. I mean, yeah, if he is in fact cleared and WWE is still balking at it, then yeah, by all means. I mean, I would do the same thing. I'd walk to make money and, do the thing that I've been doing since I was 5, 6, 7 years old. But what it comes down to for me is if medical doctors and, these people are coming out saying that he is cleared and can compete at least for 2 to 3 years, whatever the case may be, I just see the money sign and, the fan appreciation speaking to Vince to at least keep him, if that makes sense. He's not going to want to let a big talent go and then have that backlash. But, I mean, hey, if Vince is kind of being stubborn like we know him to be, then, yeah, I absolutely would see it. It would kill me because he's not associated with WWE anymore. But I absolutely could see him saying, all right, well, you know what? I have an offer from Ring of Honor for X amount of dollars, millions, and I'm going to go wrestle, so see ya.
Right, and it also comes down to the fact of, like Lewis said, he could wrestle at any time for WWE, I guess. He could be thrown into a storyline. But when they had a storyline ready, and he's been cleared by ROH for a long time now. Not New Japan. New Japan is new, and the Impact thing is new. But he's been cleared by ROH for a very, very long time, trying to rub it into WWE, saying, no, I can't wrestle. And they threw that angle out there where they were like, The Miz and Daniel Bryan are at each other's throats, and then Miz goes to Raw and Daniel Bryan stays where he is, kind of demolishing the chances of that being a match that's going to happen. I think if WWE was going to see the dollar signs, if they had a potential to look at the dollar signs were there for the first few SmackDown pay-per-views where they weren't getting the attention, and they could have had Daniel Bryan back in the ring. I think that was the dollar sign moment.
The thing for me, though, with that being said is, I mean, if you go back at storylines and, people switching brands or people going from heel to face, Vince gets cold feet a lot. I mean, I had read a story a couple weeks ago that all the writers, Triple H and Steph, all signed off on Cena going heel. This is like 2010, 2011. And Vince even signed off on it. And the day that Raw was supposed to air where he turned heel, he took it back and said that, we got to keep him face. So it seems to me like maybe they really did have the storyline ready, but like history is known to repeat itself. Vince got cold feet and said, you know what, I just can't risk him getting hurt. And if something serious happens, then that's going to be such a black cloud on the company, and it's going to really hinder, a lot of things going forward. So I could believe that he is ready. I can believe that he's ready, rather. But I just think it comes down to Vince being stubborn.
I just want to throw this in real quick. I think the ball is in WWE's court with this. If he's cleared from the other 4 companies, sure, whatever, they'll sign him. I think when it comes down to it, he made his name in the Ring of Honor and on the indie scene and came through NXT and became the superstar that he did. But he doesn't become the superstar that he did without them bringing him into FCW, and really taking off, and the character taking off the way that he did. So sure, can he take that character and recreate it as Bryan Danielson in Ring of Honor? Yes, he could. No pun intended. He absolutely could come out, do his yes chant, and be perfectly fine. But like I said, he was a good wrestler before. WWE made him a superstar. And, they did the same for his wife. They did the same for his sister-in-law. They did the same for his soon-to-be brother-in-law. And, I feel like there's some loyalty there. So I feel like, if Ring of Honor goes to him, obviously this is nowhere near what the numbers would be, but we'll give you, $1 million for a year. I feel like WWE has built up the traction, especially with allowing him to come back in this role as GM and be on TV, and having the TV show with divas and whatever, that he has built up the loyalty with the company to be able to say, listen, Ring of Honor offered me this, they've cleared me, I'm coming to you now. Will you give me more? Will you clear me? Balls in your court. And I think that's what it's going to come down to, is what the WWE wants to do.
Yeah, and I think that's the moment of truth whenever that moment comes. Because I think he's a guy that could literally say, I'm out of here. Because he's another guy like Punk that could literally just say, I'm out of here. And they're not going to fire him because then that goes public.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Well, at least the wedding's already done.
Right, the wedding's already done and the kid's been born, so he can't be fired on any more important dates. But yeah, like you said, the ball's in their court, and whenever Bryan wants to bring that argument to the table, it's up to Vince. And if Vince gets cold feet, Bryan gets to go to ROH, and I get to see Daniel Bryan for cheap. And I'm okay with that. So we'll move on to the last sport we have, Major League Baseball. We're not going to talk about the team specifically, but I want to talk about one thing now that we have Lewis back. Matt Harvey misses a practice, not even a game, on Friday night.
Not a game.
Practice.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball practice.
He misses practice, and then is suspended for 3 games going on. It has a 3-day suspension, missing his start on Saturday. He has now released an apology. His teammates have accepted him. But with him going into his last year of arbitration in 2018 and then having to re-sign after that, if there is an after that for him in the Mets, this is his second unexplained absence in 3 years. Lewis, does this concern you at all about him and his character? And I mean, the last time he did this was before a NLDS series, and now he's doing it in the regular season. Does this concern you as you look towards paying him in the future?
It doesn't necessarily concern me. It's one of those things for me that, you have an obligation to be there, so the suspension was warranted. But, we mentioned Jeter earlier. Rarely do people handle New York with the class that Derek Jeter did. Plenty of... I mean, we can start naming a list of players between the Mets and Yankees that have not been good in New York and went somewhere else and had success just because they were out of the bright lights of New York. I think that he has the talent to still be very good. a very solid 3. Will he be an ace again? I can't say that for certain because of the injuries. But when I look at it, he still has the potential to be a solid 3, maybe an ace on, a rebuilding team, or a team just trying to find something. He's still worth the investment for me. It's only the second instance that's gone public. This one worries me a bit because it was the Friday and Saturday afternoon of Cinco de Mayo, which does worry me that there could be a larger issue on the Mets' hands. But, if this was an every year thing, if, he was showing up late or, getting DUIs or whatever, like that, there would be, I would think there's a larger problem. But the guy, he's young, he's going to screw up. Hopefully he learns from this because the Mets need him this year.
They need him, but right now he's 2-2 with a 5.14 ERA in 6 starts.
Yeah.
And, for me, that doesn't speak of the Matt Harvey that I got accustomed to seeing when he first came into the league.
Yeah.
So to me, that speaks of a guy who does need practice. That speaks to me of a guy who needs to go to practice every day and figure out how to get back to that ace, especially after the injuries, get back to that ace performance, get back to those stats that are going to help me at contract time. And it feels to me, and I'm on the outside looking in, so my word is worth about as much as Matt Harvey shits. But if you're going to look at a guy that you have to re-sign in 2 years,
mm-hmm.
And he's going to demand big money because we know who his agent is and we know what he's done
in
the past. If he's going to be a guy that when he's struggling decides to not go to practice for whatever reason, he says it was a headache, and people are saying that he was sick.
Oh, I'm sure it was a headache. It was the day after Cinco de Mayo.
Right, and he went golfing in the morning and then was suddenly struck in mid-afternoon with a headache. I don't want to assume things because I feel like that's not my place.
Mm-hmm.
But if at high school and I was struggling in any sport, whatever it was, and I didn't go to practice, I wasn't going to get any better by drinking.
Yeah.
And that just speaks volume to me in the character. And I think one of the guys that had called in to the Mike Francesa show. I can't speak right now. I'm having an epileptic seizure. Said he wants to be the Derek Jeter of the New York Mets, and he said that before. But he's not acting like Derek Jeter by not showing up to practice and not being a leader. And I think the leader of that staff is slowly becoming either Syndergaard or DeGrom.
Yeah.
And he needs to either work on putting himself back in that spotlight or walking away.
Yeah, well, not to interrupt, but Lewis brought up a good point Monday night on his on his school show about,
R.I.P.
Rest in peace, Monday Night Lights.
About, with the success of Syndergaard and the success of DeGrom, when the Mets had started, finally putting these prospects in place and they started to come back into the picture, it was the Matt Harvey show. There was the Dark Knight name, and, he was taking over New York, and, Syndergaard and DeGrom were still in the minors. But then when they came up and had this unprecedented success, it was as if like Matt Harvey got pushed to the back and everybody wanted to talk about Syndergaard and DeGrom. So, Lewis, I know you kind of brought up the point of like, were there sour grapes with Matt Harvey? Because now the team and, the fans and the city are more worried about Syndergaard and DeGrom. And it's like, well, who cares about Matt Harvey? Because we have Thor and we have DeGrom.
Yeah. I definitely get that sense. I mean, obviously, it was 4 years ago that the Harvey Day thing started. And then, every week it was, every 5 days it was, it's Harvey Day. I don't think so much of the other two taking his spotlight. He hasn't been as good. His record, let me pull that up real quick. I'm on my computer. His stats in 2013 were good, but let's see here. If the sales Wi-Fi would load it. There we go. 2013. Let's see. Okay. 2013. 26 starts. He went 9-5. So, he's always been a good pitcher. It was, for me, it's starting to come to, was he highlighted because he was a young prospect that was doing well? Very similar, Birch, to you and the Phillies with Franco. How good is Franco actually as compared to when, Crawford's up there with him and Williams is up there with him and, Alfaro's up there with him? How good is Franco compared to everybody, all the other prospects that you're grooming? So part of me thinks that the allure of Harvey when he first came up was the fact that he was this glimpse into the future that Sandy Alderson has been preaching for, it was, 3 years at that point. And that he's coming up right away. We just dealt R.A. Dickey to the Blue Jays that offseason. We didn't have an ace. And this guy kind of came in and took over, went 9-5 on a bad team that had an ass bullpen and should have had more wins. I mean, he started 26 games. But when you look at it, he's, career now, 31-30. I think any team in the league would sign up for that for their 2-3 pitcher. I'll take a 500 guy with a lifetime 308 average or ERA in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I can get that out of my 3 pitcher, absolutely. I think the bump to Harvey when he first came up, again, was that allure of this is the guy that's going to be part of the future, as opposed to last year when we were rallying behind a 38-year-old knuckleballer.
Yeah, so, well, not to interrupt you, Alec, but the one question I wanted to bring up to Lewis and, Alec, you too, do you see this thing starting to spiral out of control to where maybe the Mets have to look to deal him before this becomes a cancerous situation? Or do you think it's one of those situations that'll just play out, die out, and, it'll just be business as usual?
I think it plays out and dies out.
Yeah, I think it dies.
Usual. I mean, they can't afford to be dealing pitchers right now with Thor and Matz on the shelf. So.
And, with all the injuries they have, they can't afford it, and his teammates have forgiven him. He's not a locker room cancer. It's not like he's taken half the staff out with him.
Yeah.
I mean? This is a private thing, and it hurts his stock and it hurts his price and it hurts his ability to get that Scherzer money that he thought he was going to get a year ago. But it doesn't hurt the Mets, honestly, because they still have a 3 pitcher at this point. You know what I mean? Who can be a 2 pitcher if the team plays well. And I think if it doesn't hurt the Mets, they don't have to deal him. The only person this hurts is Harvey, and it hurts Harvey in his success in New York City, like Lewis said. Maybe he does find success out of the bright lights and, away from the crowds and everything else. And I hope he does, from a human standpoint. I hope, he doesn't screw up and he gets his act together. But I don't think this hurts the Mets at all. The Mets are going to be fine without him, and they'll be fine with him. I think they'll be, because I mean, if Harvey walks, there's Seth Lugo, and Gazelman's done very well this year for himself, for this being his first full year.
Yeah, and you still have Syndergaard and DeGrom, so.
Yeah, I think the Mets will just be just fine without Matt Harvey, even if he decides to leave.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it helps, like you said, it helps to have him around. But, I mean, kind of puts him in a rough spot. Like I said, lifetime 500 pitcher, 3 ERA, 1 WHIP. He is a good pitcher that gets really good once in a while. And he could turn that into a massive contract with the right team. I think if he can get a team like Anaheim to bite, who doesn't have any pitchers right now, if we're 2 years down the road and Anaheim is still going with Tyler Skaggs, I think he absolutely could cash in with a team like Anaheim. But, I think if a team is willing to give him that massive contract, the Mets are not in a position where they have to do it, because he hasn't been that good for them. you know, he's a good, like I said, he's a good pitcher that at times can be great. And, you know, if he's going to get that massive contract with someone, the Mets can go ahead and let him have it. Because, like you said, Alec, they have, you know, Thor, DeGrom, Lugo, Gazelman, Matz, Wheeler. They have 6 without Harvey. So, and you know, obviously the Mets are going to start opening up the checkbook a little bit more too, you know, because they understand they have to sign these guys.
You know, I just wanted to kind of relate this almost to the Phillies situation a couple years ago. You know, you talk about Matt Harvey not having these earth-shattering numbers, but still being, you know, productive, especially when you have Syndergaard and DeGrom. And it makes me think of Cole Hamels. You know, I have his stats up here. And in 08, yeah, he won the World Series MVP. But then you go to 09, 2010, 2011, when the Phillies got, you know, they were shuffling with Lee, Halladay and Lee, you know.
And Roy Oswalt.
And Oswalt, yeah. In 2008, when the Phillies won the World Series, he went 14-10 with a 3.09 ERA, and he was the ace. And, you know, when you talk about ace numbers, you generally think of like a 20-game winner with like a 2-something ERA. So the point I'm trying to make is maybe this is a situation where, yeah, you have Syndergaard and DeGrom, but maybe Harvey can push himself to be better. And it was like in 2012 when Halladay and Lee kind of just started to fade off, then Hamels turned it on, you know, and was a huge trade chip that the Phillies used to eventually trade to the Rangers and get a couple prospects. But, you know, and maybe the Mets want to do that. Maybe Harvey comes out and starts to pitch better, and, you know, maybe they figure they could trade him and get a couple bats or something. But, you know, the point I'm trying to make is, you know, just because he doesn't have these earth-shattering numbers, 20 games, 20 games, Cy Young, World Series MVP, blah, 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 he can still be a quality pitcher for you. And, you know, when you look at the 2009, 2010, 2011 Phillies, when they had the Halladay and the Lee in the front, you know, Hamels was still a very productive 3 and 4 pitcher.
Right, but I think
the
point is you can't pay Harvey like a Cy Young winner, which is what he originally wanted.
No, and that's where I think the Mets can say, look, you know, these are your stats. This is what, you know, you have produced. We're going to give you money for a 3 or a 4, or you can, you know, you can go on a crap team and make, I don't know, $15-16 million a year.
Burge, Boris is his agent. He's making $16 million a year. It doesn't matter where he is.
I think when it comes down to it, as far as his ability, if he's going to get paid, he's going to get paid. Like you said, Boris is his agent.
He's getting paid.
If he wants $80 million, he's getting $80 million from someone.
Yeah.
Even if it takes till February to get it.
He'll wait till someone's hurt.
The year I look at the most is 2015, the World Series year. That's the year that DeGrom came up, Thor came up, and, you know, really, you know, the gas pedal was hit. And he went 13-8 with a 2.71 ERA and a 1 WHIP. He's a competitive guy. He was competing to try to keep his standing as the ace. You know, and then obviously went deep into the postseason. That was obviously 2015 was obviously the year with the innings limit. And, you know, should he go over it? They're going into the postseason, you know, or should he sit, you know, and essentially do what Strasburg did to the Nationals a couple of years back. And he ended up pitching, and we found that last year. It ended up biting him in the ass. He was bad, and he had shoulder surgery. And he's starting to come back from that little by little. And I think if it comes down to it, he can rev it up again. You know, if DeGrom gets on a roll and Syndergaard comes back probably after the All-Star break and gets on a roll, he can absolutely turn it up with them. He is maybe not as talented anymore just because of the state of the injury he's had, but, you know, he is as talented as anybody. You know, he would be, you know, he'd be right at the top of either of your guys' rotations. And, you know, if he can just get healthy, stay healthy, he's as good as anyone. He's competitive as hell. And, you know, we saw it in 2015 when he was fighting for his position that he kind of assumed in 2013 before the Tommy John surgery. He wanted to come back and establish that he's still the ace, and he did it. I mean, like I said, 13-8, 2.71 ERA. He was very good. The wins just weren't there for him, and that's it's bad luck on the bullpen sometimes. He's a capable pitcher. If they could just get him in a position to, Syndergaard's on a roll, DeGrom's on a roll. Let's even throw in Wheeler. He's been, starting to get better and starting to look healthier. You get Harvey to come back, and he looks like the 4 right now at that point. He can absolutely go toe-to-toe with any of the Mets starters and try to get his spot back as an ace.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason why I kind of related it to the Hamill situation is when, they got Cliffley and they got Halladay, nobody wanted to talk about Cole Hamels. It was like, we want to talk about Cliff, we want to talk about Doc Halladay. And then in 2011, you have the both of them. And it's like, well, here's Cole Hamels, the guy single-handedly pitched you to a World Series in 2008. And then you go get these 2 aces and kind of put them on the back burner. And, kind of relating it to Harvey's situation, Hamels pushed himself and had a really good 2011. And obviously, the offense, I argue, was just butt and completely let them down in the NLDS series with the Cardinals. But, yeah, it's a similar situation with Harvey. I mean, Syndergaard and DeGrom are going to be your top 2. And if Matt Harvey is going to compete and push himself, he absolutely could be a great 3 or a great 4 and go toe-to-toe with anybody else's 3 or 4 when it comes to the postseason.
Well, but what I'm saying is that he's as capable as anybody. If he got on a roll the way he did in 2013 when he was really good, or in 2015 when he helped get them to the World Series, he could still be an ace. And if it comes down to it, Boris is going to get into his ear and say, listen, you're looking at 45 mil, 50 mil right now. You want 80, you got to pitch better. And Matt Harvey is competitive enough where he can get it there. Yeah,
no, I get that. And that's why I was kind of relating it to Hamels, because he had a really good 2011. It's like, okay, you have Halladay, you have Lee. Hamels started to pitch better, and then, he was still maybe not considered the ace of the staff per se because you had Halladay and Lee, but he was still an ace in his own regard because he still pitched very well, a lot like Harvey.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Syndergaard, you have DeGrom, but, if Matt Harvey pitches like he did in 2013, then, yeah, you'd still have to consider him an ace and a part of that, strong rotation.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what this makes him do now, where his stock is, and whether he decides to get back and make a run, or he decides to keep, being just as good as he has been, and maybe he's a 500 pitcher for his career. It's all on him. Ball's in his court, and now that he's apologized and once his suspension is over, he can do whatever he wants. But it's all on him whether he wants to be that ace or he wants to be a 3 or a 4. That's a matter of effort, not a matter of someone's holding him back.
Yeah, and if he's healthy, I think the opportunity to strike is now with Matz and Syndergaard being on the shelf. Now he can really assert himself and say, yo, like, let's say the Mets jump in first place at the trade deadline when Syndergaard supposedly comes back post All-Star break. Let's say he's pitched them into first place and in a playoff contention. He could turn around and say, yeah, let's start talking contract. Let's start talking about that $80-90 million now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on him. He can be a 16-2 guy, or he can be a 2-16 guy. It depends on how hard Matt Harvey's willing to work. So I wanted to bring up the last topic for tonight, something that has been popping up recently in international sports and also in American sports. We had talked about it last week, about the Adam Jones situation in Boston. How there were some racially insensitive comments that were said to him, but then he was applauded the next game. I want to bring up just some stats for you guys. In 2015, there were 11 incidents of racial insensitivity in American sports. In 2016, there were 31. And obviously for 2017, we're not even done yet, so you can't even calculate that. I mean, you had situations like Nikita Whitlock from the New York Giants. His house was robbed and vandalized, covering it in the KKK letters. Signs that said "Go back to Africa." He was born in the United States. Brandon Marshall, lineman for the Denver Broncos, got hundreds of hate mail letters, both email and regular letters, throwing words around that probably should never be said to another human being if you're trying to harm them. And in the international scene, there have been so many incidents of racial insensitivity towards Italian soccer players that the league's players are actually now thinking of a boycott so that no African players would ever play in that league ever again until the situation is fixed. So my question to you was, with everything that's been going on, Wayne Simmons, PK Subban in the past having bananas thrown at them, is there anything that sports organizations can do to kind of curb the racism and make it an even playing field again? Because it feels like we've drifted so far from the days of, it was just a matter of if they could play. If, and once Jackie Robinson proved that everyone can play the exact same amount, it was all good. And now we're to the point of we have to scream things at each other.
Well, I'll jump at this real quick. One thing that really kind of hit me was, the Colin Kaepernick thing going back in September, and some players joined in on that protest, and that's a whole nother issue. But there was a post with Malcolm Jenkins kind of jumping on board with that Kaepernick thing when the Eagles played the Bears in week 2. And I think he was in South Jersey, had tweeted, and I'm not even going to repeat what he said, or Snapchatted a picture of him. I don't even want to repeat what he said. But that kind of because maybe I'm an Eagles fan and Malcolm Jenkins is one of my favorite players. But I mean, to say that and post that is just, it's disgusting. And I think if you want to curb it, you find these people that are doing these things or saying these things, and you ban them from attending professional sports games, whatever it is, soccer, baseball, hockey, football, whatever. I said last week that, with all the crap that we have going on in the world today, professional sports is almost a way to get away from reality. You crack open a beer to watch a football game or a baseball game. You want to go down to the stadium with the family. It's been a hard week. You want to go see the Phillies get roughed around by the Nationals. By all means, I think that if this stuff is going to continue to rise in professional sports, you have to find the people that are, committing these acts of hate, and you need to ban them permanently. I think that's the only way, at least in my mind, that you could get the message out there that, one, we don't tolerate this, and two, we need to put a stop to it.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis, what about you? Is there a way to stop these sort of things from happening in professional sports?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board for, banning people for life from a stadium when something like that happens. But ultimately, there's always going to be cases of people that have these racist ideals that come into your park because there's no way to screen them out. You can't issue a survey when you buy a ticket like, hey, do you like black people? It'll never work. I mean, the only thing that could ever work in my mind, and it'll never happen because it would hurt profits, would be stop selling beer. We've been there. We've been in college. Your chest gets puffed out when you're drinking. You think you're invincible. And
I've never thought I was that invincible, though.
Well, yeah, no, but
but I see the point that you're trying to make.
Think about it. If I am a drunk 40-year-old man and I decide I'm at the Nats Phillies game and I'm gonna yell at Michael Taylor because that's what I feel like doing because I've had a couple brews, I know he ain't gonna come up and hit me because then he gets suspended, he gets potentially cut, and what do? Get thrown out of the stadium?
Yeah.
Yeah, and best case scenario for me, if I'm trying to make something out of it, he comes up and hits me, if I'm on the third baseline or something, and then I'm all over SportsCenter. I got hit by a player, and, I was, saying this shit, which is unacceptable, but team's going to have, either him or are going to have there's going to be some sort of compensation coming your way to drop it that he hit you. So, like I said, it'll never happen because it would hurt profits. But the only way to stop it is drinking beer, because if you don't serve beer, then everyone's going to sit on their hands and watch the game.
Well, Yeah, you bring up a good point, but I think we're at the point in society where people want to be assholes, where people want to go to, and make a bad name for themselves. I mean, it's like how we said last week, Alec, you went in your rant about hating Boston, and you can't blame the city of Boston for a couple people's actions.
There's a difference between me hating Dustin Pedroia and I don't hate Dustin Pedroia as a person. I think if I met Dustin Pedroia on the street, I'd still hug him because he's an insane baseball player and he's extremely talented. I hate the jersey he wears. There's a difference between me saying, I don't like you, you suck at baseball, and me picking up a banana and throwing it at Wayne Simmons, and I hate him too. There's a line that is crossed that it constitutes a totally different. I can get escorted out of the stadium for saying curse words at Dustin Pedroia, but if I call Mookie Betts some terrible things, I think I deserve to get banned for life, and I'm not allowed within 500 feet.
No. I totally agree with what you're saying, but what I'm trying to say is you can take away beer, you can take away this and that, but there's always going to be those people that do it because they want to be that asshole. They want to be, there was Joe Smith, from down on Fifth Ave, who went to the Phillies game and yelled things at Odubel Herrera. I mean, I just think you have to find that person, and if you want to stop it and you want to send a message, you ban them for life from any professional sporting event. I think that's the only way because, look, it's kind of apples to oranges in a sense, but we brought up on the NFL draft show about the possibility of Donovan McNabb reading out an Eagles pick. And I think the majority of the city would have cheered, but there's always going to be those jackass Eagles fans that are going to boo him, and then the media is going to pick up on the ones that booed him. But what I'm trying to say is you can't blame all of Philadelphia or all of Boston or all of New York or all of whatever for yelling obscene things at players. I would find out who's doing it, and guess what, bud? You're not coming back to another professional sporting game for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I'm not, I'm not saying that all fan bases are, terrible,
Oh, no. I know what you mean.
It's just, there's got to be a way to curb it because, I mean, in the United States, we're somehow the best at it, which is the first thing we're being the best at in a long time. But, I mean, I'm talking about this Italian league that, this is the Premier League of Italy. This is their sport. This is their, biggest thing to watch on TV. And there's been 111 incidences of racism, so much so that players are thinking about leaving and going somewhere else and not honoring their contracts because they feel so threatened by the fan bases. I mean, I think the only way to prevent it from getting to that point is to make a strong example out of somebody.
Well, that's where
you're banned. You can't come back, and anyone who wants to do this is going to face the same thing. Because imagine if this is a worst case scenario. Imagine if MLB came forward and were like, we've been having a lot of problems with racial comments towards our players, and every black player or a Hispanic player or whoever, any minority player stepped forward and said, yeah, we're out of here. We're going wherever else we can play baseball, but we're not.
What, about 90% of baseball? I don't know the statistic, but that's got to be about at least over 3/4 of baseball.
That's a chunk. That is a huge chunk of baseball that walks. And I mean, yeah, you'll still have baseball players, sure.
Well, I'll do you one better. I'll do you one. Yeah, I'll do you one better. What if the NBA had this problem?
Well, there would be no more NBA.
There'd be no more NBA. And I mean, I'm not trying to make a racial joke out of it. It just is. The majority of the NBA
would be the best player in basketball.
and that's kind of
terrifying.
But I think, maybe the United States and their professional sports, and the world need to get together to do something about this because it's like I said, these athletes play this game because they love the game. They shouldn't be shamed or, hated because of it. I mean, everybody has a right to do the thing that they love. And, if you're going to be yelled at and, your family's going to be attacked, then that jackass just needs to be banned for life. And I think, maybe there's a way that the U.S. and, these other countries that have sports can get together to come up with a way to curb it. And maybe you ban these people. Because, Lewis, I commend you for the idea of taking away beer, but you're never going to take away.
It'll never happen. Yeah,
I'll fight you on that. I will personally attack you.
I was going to accept that. Like, it's never going to happen. But I mean,
if I can't have a Guinness and a soccer game, I'm out of there.
Yeah, but it just there's got to be a way to end this because this is This is just getting out of hand, and it's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, no, and it's ridiculous to me too to think about. I mean, it's one thing to look at an incident, but to read that an entire league's worth of players thinking about walking because of how bad it's gotten.
That's a shame. I mean, because it's like you said, like what if the NHL, like people just said, oh, I don't know.
What if Russians left the NHL? We'd be fresh out of players.
You're done. I mean, it's like I said, what if things happen in the NBA and, LeBron James says, you know what, African American players, we're going to boycott until something's done. You're not going to be playing basketball.
You're not going to you're going to play basketball. It's going to be real bad, though. It's going to be real bad.
It's going to be awful. It's going to be J.J. Redick and Gordon Hayward going at it, and I don't think anybody wants to see that. Not even in a video game.
I kind of do, but, like, that's just me. But, like, yeah, it's to lose an entire league's worth of players, regardless of what country it is or what sport it is awful. I mean, take any sport that anyone enjoys around the world. Take the NFL. The NFL has a mixture of all kinds of players, of all nationalities. If all the African American players got up and said, "Yeah, we're out of here. We're not doing this anymore. We're going to the CFL." The CFL becomes the best league in the world immediately because they have all that talent now. And also, the NFL looks dumb because there was probably so many steps in between that they could have stopped this.
It's one thing to boo a player because they suck, or maybe I don't know. There's reasons to do it.
It's one thing to boo a player for a mistake they made or a jersey they wear or anything like that, but to yell at someone and insult them for something they have no control over is insulting to not even but every fan around you.
Yeah, not even that they have no control over, but we're talking about skin color here. I mean, you're really gonna boo a guy for that? Like, I mean. Obviously, there's a lot of obviously there's a lot of issues. Yeah, there's a lot of issues, and we still have a lot of those issues in society. But I mean, like I said, sports is a way to escape from reality. So I don't see why. I just don't understand why people are bringing it into sports. It's stupid.
I really.
I don't know. I can't put it any other way. Maybe Lewis, you can. I just think it's stupid.
I know. I agree with you. It's dumb.
It is stupid. What bothers me the most is. Was CC Sabathia's comments after it happened when he came out and essentially said that, there's I don't remember the exact number, but there's X amount of African American players in the major leagues, and each and every single one of them knows when you go to Boston, you expect it. That's what bothered me the most, was that this is this big of a problem.
And Boston hasn't said anything.
And it's like.
Well, the Red Sox did. They come out and.
If Sabathia knows about it, he's been with the Yankees since '09. So we're going on 8 seasons that he's wearing pinstripes and going to Boston as the enemy.
And Boston comes out and says that they don't condone it, but
there's a difference between saying we don't condone it and we're going to start banning you from games.
Right.
And this is the team that over time has had Mookie Betts. Jackie Bradley Jr. Even you want to throw all color in because people just yell for not being white. David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez. They've had so many players of color that and for a guy like Sabathia to come out and essentially say that there's however many of us, and we all know when you go to Boston you expect to get yelled the N-word at you. Or some other term, like that points to a bigger problem. That how long has this been going on?
Oh yeah,
it hasn't been documented. But how long did it take for one idiot to throw peanuts at Adam Jones
to really put it over the line?
Exactly. To point to the much bigger problem. But obviously, this is Jones who came out during the NFL season, if you remember, and said. I would do something like this in baseball, but I would just be cut.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the support.
I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but I'm almost kind of glad it happened to Adam Jones because he has a voice, and he's a minority. Unfortunately, again, I don't want this to be misconstrued, but he's a minority in baseball, and he spoke up about it, and now we can look at this issue. But yeah, I'm not glad that obviously, he was tormented like that. I'm glad that he spoke up about it. And maybe this is what it took for him to speak up about it. But, Lewis, you bring up a good point. I mean, if Sabathia has been with the Yanks for 8 years and he said, I think he said it to a teammate, right? Like, oh, we're going to Boston.
He said it to an ESPN reporter.
Okay. Then that shows me that there is a much, much bigger issue that maybe has been swept under the rug for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a guy like Sabathia too, he's it's in a scale of light skin to really dark skin. If you want to put him somewhere in the middle, Didi Gregorius is somewhere towards like midnight black, and that's not to offend Didi. It's just I can't even imagine what they say to that poor man, and he's just trying to play baseball. Or
yeah,
I can't imagine what they say to anybody. If
these
that's
guys
what they say
just
to Adam Jones,
the thing that gets me is like you're paying to see entertainment. You're paying to see people entertain you. I mean, that's really what it is. Like I mean, I go to Eagles games to be entertained, for better or for worse. And I could never imagine. Like, look, I'll come out and say I didn't agree with the Colin Kaepernick thing, and but Malcolm Jenkins has the right to take whatever stance he wants on the issue. And I could never imagine saying the things that kid said about him. I mean, he's just a guy who sees an issue and, like I said, maybe I don't agree with how he handled it or his stance on it, but he absolutely has the right to voice his opinion. And I could never imagine saying those things or posting those things about him. I mean, one of the things that this country was supposed to be founded on was people of different backgrounds being able to come together and, maybe we disagree, but we'll find a way to live with each other. And, to see Adam Jones, go swing a wood bat at a baseball and make money, to entertain you, and you're going to do that. I mean, that's just, it's disgusting. And I think something needs to be done now, especially following what CC has said about this has been going on for the last several years.
Yeah, and just to comment real quick, I mean, I've been booed before. I've gone to road games. We've been booed. There were instances of racist comments from away crowds. It becomes one of those things that, like, yeah, it's wrong. But the sport culture is so tailored to, if you fuck up as the athlete, we can find your replacement with the snap of a finger. And if something like this were to happen in the NFL to the Panthers, let's just say, and someone, the Panthers are playing the Patriots, let's just say, since it was Boston, in which the Adam Jones thing happened, and someone chucked a banana at Cam. Cam might be the type of person that would get furious about it, and start yelling, very similar to the way that Jones did with Baltimore. The fact of the matter is that, if Cam Newton gets frustrated and reacts and reacts to that fan that threw something at him, the fact of the matter is that the Panthers will have no problem going and drafting Sam Darnold, Jake Browning, and saying, Cam's a hothead. We can't, take the risk of Cam Newton getting into an incident because someone says something to him. And it's so tailored that way that it's honestly sickening, is that, these athletes can't speak up when shit is happening to them.
And that's where this league
to be able to say, hey, there's a bigger issue here, so it doesn't build up over 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, and finally take a bag of peanuts being thrown at a guy for people to notice.
Well, that's where the league has to step in. That's where the league, league, regardless of professional, semi-pro, amateur, high school, doesn't matter. Any league has to step in and go, if you want to say that crap, fine, be our guest, say that crap, but we're going to throw your ass out. You're never going to be able to come see a game again, and I hope you enjoyed throwing those peanuts, because them's be your last peanuts.
Yeah, I mean,
that's it.
It's You buy a ticket, you buy your seat, and you have freedom of speech. But the fact of the matter is, once something like that comes out of your mouth, he should gone.
Like
I'm gonna take your mouth away. That's what's gonna happen.
I mean, I've been going to Eagles games for what? This is going to be my 20th year, and I'm telling you, maybe there's issues in other sections that I don't know about, but again, nothing has been
family section.
Family section.
It just means there's
little kids.
That just means there's no alcohol allowed. And I think a lot of stadiums are starting to buy into that. But that's kind of besides the point. Just drink it. Just drink in the concourse below it. I mean, it's like 2 steps. But
I want to drink in my seat.
Can't see the game from the concourse.
Hey.
Well, you got this real nice. Hey, Lincoln Financial Field has this real nice HD TVs that we provide.
I can do that at home.
But no, I mean, I mean. Who knows if anything's going on in the NFL? Because, like you said, these athletes are just not given the leeway to talk. And, I mean, I can tell you, at least from my experience, you're getting booed because you're wearing a Cowboys jersey or a Giants jersey or a Redskins jersey. You're not getting booed because you're black in a Cowboys jersey or you're Asian in a Cowboys jersey. You're getting booed for wearing the star. Yeah. So if you're going to boo on that, I mean, just don't even come to the game, dude. Just go sit in the parking lot and, fall asleep because you've drank about 2 cases of beer, or just stay at home.
That's impressive. I think he's dead.
That's impressive. But
that's
dead. That's impressive. But that's kind of where I was going with my comment before I realized what you were talking. I got a little sidetracked. Like, I've been booed before, and I've had, racist comments slung at my teammates. Like, you want to boo me for, the name that's across the front of my jersey? Fine. I am not the home team. Go ahead and boo me.
So we're here.
But the second you start insulting people, like you said, Al, for things that they can't control, then it becomes an issue.
Oh, yeah. I can even chime in. I remember high school basketball. We had a really good black player. He was our point guard. And we went to a school that was known for kind of, having a raucous, student section. And I can remember being on the court with him and hearing some of the students say things about him. And, I'm obviously not going to get involved and start a huge brawl, but you're almost sitting there thinking like, dude, the kid's 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, whatever. And you're going to boo him for being black and playing basketball. Like, I mean, that's like you said, that you can boo Christopher Dock all you want. That's fine. I encourage you to. You're not. You
can even boo him because he's good and he's going against your team.
Right.
But the second you throw race into it,
but the second that I'm on the court and I hear the N-word being dropped and this and that, I mean, like something needs to be done. And like our coach knew about it, and I think he went and tried to make it an issue, but they I guess they talked to the students, and I mean, I don't remember, it was a couple years ago, but to the point, like, boo somebody for being in a Cowboys jersey or an Eagles jersey or, in a Red Sox jersey, but you're not booing them for something they have no control over.
Yeah, and it's something that the league every league has to either get a hold on, or we have to make some sort of policy. Each team has to make a policy on it, or whatever they're going to make, but it comes from the organizations. It doesn't come from the players or the fans.
But not to continue on, but what's a policy gonna do other than saying we don't condone it? Well, I can tell you
a policy that if you make these comments, you get tossed out and banned permanently.
Oh yeah,
that's
absolutely.
A policy. That's a policy.
I was thinking more of them coming out and saying, oh, we don't condone that kind of language.
They never condone it, but if you make a policy that says if you get banned, I'm sure less people will try it.
I'm sure.
Maybe a lot of people do get banned, but good. I don't want those people around.
No, and I'm at the point now. I'm at the age now where if I heard that at an Eagles game, I'd be like, "Yo, come on, like seriously."
Yeah,
like boom,
if someone booed Mookie Betts and said some real bad things, even as a Yankees fan, I'd be like, "Dude, for real?" Like, first of all, he's gonna be on our team in 5 years. Second of all,
it works for Boston outfield.
It does.
Yeah, but like, don't boo him for that. Boo him because he's batting .330. Like, just leave all that stuff home. Boo him for the stuff that matters, and that's baseball, not the color of his skin. And so I guess we'll wrap it up tonight. This has been the Feed Me Sports Podcast. Like and subscribe to the video. Comment down below what you'd like us to talk about next time, whatever it is. If you want to talk about how Lewis is doing now that he's back from being kidnapped, he's no longer being held hostage by Grimace. If you want to talk about to Birch about how we should pick new teams to be fans of, he knows. He just is too stubborn to change.
Also, real quick, I have issue with that one. I've been listening. I'll listen to see. I listened to the last couple of weeks to see where I went. I have an issue here. The Grimace thing was funny because I do share very similar characteristics with Grimace and Patrick
You are a
Star.
portly man. Let's be honest.
I do share distinctive characteristics with both Grimace and Patrick Star.
You're purple.
But with my love of hamburgers, I would have went with the Hamburglar tried to steal his burger, and he said, "I'm coming with you. This is my burger."
I mean, wherever, if you want to leave suggestions for where Lewis should go next time, we could do like
I'm gonna
Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego for Lewis.
I'm gonna write you up a list of places that I may go for
There we go.
Please, if you need more sports, read our articles at feedmesports.wordpress.com. Follow us on our personal Twitters at Roman the Rican, at Birch_beer007, and at Schaefer500. Tune in next week for another podcast, and we will see you guys all next time.